What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone, we got Eric from the Almighty Testament. Thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
No worries. How you doing?
Doing all right. It's great to have you here. The new album, Titans of Creation. I spoke to Chuck back at NAMM. We couldn't really give away too much of the title, but now the title's announced, the release date's announced. Do you consider this just a continuation of Brotherhood of the Snake, or do you think that this is kind of like a standout in the Testament catalog?
Well, it's definitely not a continuation. I mean, it's in the same vein, I guess. I mean, we kind of got our second wind on, I don't know, our second win on Low. That's been a while ago, but Formation would be, kind of where our second win got, I guess, with the, getting the original lineup back together. This record definitely stands on its own. To me, it kind of just pummels its way through. It reminds me a lot of The Gathering.
Oh, wow.
Where each song just kind of has its own vibe, but altogether it just pummels its way through.
Interesting. Well, when you look at, being that this is your 13th album, have you always taken a new approach to every single Testament album, or do you guys kind of have maybe a formula or usual go-to mode for songwriting?
It's a good question. I mean, both, I guess, I mean, we definitely, it isn't like, okay, we're starting a new band, who do we want to sound, who's our influences? I mean, we have our influences from way back in the day, and there's new bands that come along that, you go, oh, that's cool, that you really dig and you get ideas from, but the foundation of Testament is still, the old classic stuff. Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Zeppelin, Merciful Fate,
yeah,
Venom, Metallica.
Yeah, of course.
Just all the the really cool heavy metal kind of stuff, and then there's newer bands that you listen to. Some of the, for me, black metal stuff like Demue and Mayhem, and even bands like Ghost. Just new stuff that's really cool.
Yeah.
Rush.
Rest in peace.
Can't forget. The band Rush. Just Neil Peart's drumming and ideas and stuff. But I mean, that's kind of just in the back of your brain. And the way I approach it is, there's definitely a formula, but for me, I think more of what sounds cool.
Yeah.
Is it gonna hit me? Is it gonna make me move? Yeah, because you could go, okay, here's the formula, and then go, okay, I've already done this a million times, and whatever, and then it's gonna sound like that. But you can put some love into it, and then it sounds fresh again.
Definitely. For your guitar playing, do you have a background in theory, what scale you're working off of, or chord progression, or is your work rather improvised?
More improvised. If I start, Alex will kind of sometimes remind me, you're in the key of E, or what we tune down to E flat. So that was more something that he would bring up in the past. So I always try to, work in different keys. Like A is a good key for metal. B, C sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of stick to those, I guess.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Is that why you always have multiple guitars when you guys play live? Is because you have to have them adjusted in a certain tuning? It's not like you can't really waste time changing the tuning pegs or anything like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some songs that are, drop C, and there's some songs that are, a drop C sharp, and then there's some songs that are just tuned to E flat. All the older stuff up to the Ritual was tuned to E, and then I think on the Ritual we decided to tune down a half step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This gives a little bit more heaviness to it, and a little easier to play.
Definitely. One thing I was really curious about is, in between Brotherhood of the Snake and Titans of Creation, you released Dominion by Dragonlord. So did maybe working with another project maybe also open up some new ideas for Titans of Creation, or was that a completely separate entity?
Again, both. I mean, because that record took forever. I mean, there was, that record started in 11 and 12, and it just kind of ran out of time, basically, and it just I was trying to get it done in between the Testament schedule, so that that record took a lot more time than it needed to, but at the same time, a lot of things changed, a lot of different ideas. I mean, it was kind of meant to be, I guess, that way, because to me, it came out really good. It wasn't like sterile or anything. So there's a lot of new influences, like, oh yeah, I could do this now. I wouldn't have done some things if I would have just got it done. So I definitely don't like to do it. I don't like to take 5, 6, 7 years to do a record.
Yeah.
That's crazy, but it was one of those records where I had that time to do that. But so when it was done, it was like when I heard it, I was like, okay, this is kind of, for me, as far as soloing, I was a lot more comfortable, playing solos and whatnot. So on this new record, that's kind of where I'm at, I guess.
Yeah.
Alex and I are kind of sharing the solos, and it's not, not taken away from anything. It's just, it's a totally different vibe, but it just adds another element.
Definitely.
It's cool.
Yeah, you mentioned you don't like working on records for too long. I'd imagine that has to be torture. I mean, just like because Dark Roots of Earth came out 4 years before Brotherhood of the Snake, and The Formation of Damnation came out 4 years before that. I mean, but I guess it's because you constantly tour relentlessly, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really 4 years. It's more like, 3, I guess. Like someone said, it took 4 years between Brotherhood of the Snake and this last record, but I pointed out, like, well, the Brotherhood of the Snake came out in 17, but it came out in like late November 17.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more like 18. So 18, 19, 20. So it's like 3 years.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. One thing I was also really curious about is because, as somebody who has seen you live on multiple occasions, like, seeing you live is a completely different experience than simply listening to the album. So, like, is there maybe a similar energy that you put into playing live as you do in your songwriting, or is it a completely separate art altogether?
Well, as much touring as we do, and that's another reason why, things take a little bit longer. We used to just do North America and Europe, and then maybe we'd get lucky and go to Japan, but now we're going to crazier places. Now we'll do South America, we'll do festivals in Europe, we'll do touring in Europe, North America, Canada, and then do some off the wall places like Nepal or Kathmandu. Same thing, but the songs, when you're writing the songs, and you write them and you record them, you do your best you can do with them, but they kind of grow up on tour. You end up improvising and changing things a little bit, and I think the songs get better with age.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I always think that we need to play it like the record, but 3 years later we're playing it live. Then I won't listen to the record, and I'll listen to the record. I'm like, God, that feels stiff. Like, we don't play it like that anymore. So yeah, it loosens up, and we get more comfortable with it. And
yeah,
I mean, it's pretty close, but yeah, it's just it opens up a little bit for sure.
Yeah, and having 13 albums, I mean, like, it's got to be harder to put a set list together when playing live, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's a chore for sure. I mean, a lot of times we always fall to default. It's like we'll do pick all these songs, and it's like we always end up going back. Okay, go back to the title tracks, and and a lot of them we always go back to the New Order, Into the Pit, The Preacher, Disciples of the Watch, The New Order. Stuff like that, but we really tried hard on this last run in Europe to pull out some deep cuts like Throne of Thorns. We even pulled out the Greenhouse Effect, which I think we haven't played that since like '89.
Yeah.
Yeah, just pulling out stuff like that, like Fall of Disciple Dome, from The Gathering. Usually we play DNR. That's been in the set forever. We kind of put some stuff on the shelf. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work too. I mean, I think we kind of overextended ourselves because when we were putting our set together, none of those songs were in the set list. It was all these new songs, and we were just like, whoa. I remember why we didn't pick this song because it's super hard to play. Our hands are just like Jesus.
Yeah. Well.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thought on like the Slayer tour, on the Slayer farewell tour, where you guys were opening, and like you had you still had to play some newer stuff, but you were playing with Anthrax and Slayer, so there was going to be a lot of old school thrashers who may have wanted to hear stuff off like The Legacy or Practice What You Preach or something like that. So I'd imagine too that also played into a role, depending on how much time you have.
Yeah, when you're playing festivals and you're playing for you're opening for a band and you're playing in front of a lot of people, it's a better idea to play stuff that's more familiar, because some people have never maybe seen you, and you want to pick the songs that were the A songs back then, even though you played them forever and you're sick of them. You want to play something different. It's a good idea to do that. And also when people are walking around, they're like, I know this song. And that's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. You don't want to play all these different songs where everybody's like, what's this? That's more for like headlining, like the fans appreciate it. Like, oh my God, they're playing Throne of Thorns, or, I can't believe they're playing The Persecuted Won't Forget. That's stuff like that is cool for headlining.
Yeah, I think like the longer your set is, obviously the more time you have for deep cuts, and then the shorter the set is, it's just full on pedal to the metal.
Yeah, and I don't mind pedal to the metal too. I mean, there's on the last tour we just did, I think it was the third show, we got sent into an 11-hour ride on a ferry, like a huge ferry, and we got stuck in a Category 1 storm.
Ooh.
And it was a nightmare. It was just, I thought I didn't think we were going to make it. I mean, the way the ship, picture a huge ship, and just, you look out the window and there's just waves. It looked like a movie, like I was watching a movie. The waves looked like mountains. And, it was just up for 8 hours, just up and down and crashing, and it's insane. But, so anyway, as the story goes, we made it through it, got to the gig. Our semi with all our equipment, they didn't let that truck go through, so they had to take the ferry in the mornings, which meant our gear and all our, everything, our stage clothes, everything was not going to make it to the show. So we had to borrow Exodus's gear and their guitars, and Death Angel, they chipped in. So we had to change our set because our set consists of a lot of different guitars, different tunings, tremolo bars. So we had to just stick to one tuning, and we just went, let's just do punk. Let's just be punk rock, and we'll just, we'll do all our normal songs.
Well, I mean,
and it was a good show because we just went out there and just slayed it, and even some of the Exodus guys were like, "That was your best show."
Well, happy accidents, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because working off, is there like specific gear dedicated to thrash? Because you're working with the gear of Exodus and Death Angel. Kind of maybe there's like a similar principle. Like, was it similar gear that you normally use?
Yeah, I mean, we're all kind of from the Bay Area, and
Mm-hmm.
we all kind of have the same kind of vibe, I guess. Crunchy kind of guitar. I used Gary's amp. His tone was a little bit more scooped in the mids, I guess. Mm-hmm. Good tone. It was it reminded me of my tone. I definitely felt comfortable.
Yeah.
I've been adding a little bit more mids in my tone. But his tone was a lot of fun to play through his stuff. I was like, wow, this is killer.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, this is weird. it was kind of refreshing. Like, this is cool. Wait, and then I was like, whoa, what are your settings? But yeah, no, it was really. I mean, Gary's got awesome tone. He's an amazing guitar player. So
yeah,
he was all stoked. He saw switch stick in my toe, and I'm all, dude, it's fucking awesome.
Perfect. And I have 2 more questions for you, if that's cool. But when you looking at the entirety of your catalog, and this could just me being, a Testament fan, but when you compare like the Legacy to Souls of Black to Demonic and like everything in your catalog, is it almost like representative on you and who the members of the band were at that particular time? Is it kind of like maybe like a self-portrait through different timelines of who you are?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Legacy is the beginning of a genre, and it was kind of the blueprint. One of the blueprints of thrash metal, I guess. All our first records, Kill 'Em All, Bonded by Blood, Ultraviolence, Forbidden Evil, all those records, all those first records just represented, we hadn't traveled the world yet. It was what we were doing in our hometown, and that all being influenced by each other, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Souls of Black, where we're starting to, travel the world and starting to open up our minds on, maybe adding, listening to our record companies, trying to be a little bit catchier, have a chorus. And then Demonic is a whole different can of worms. That's after, grunge came in, and metal was kind of a dirty word, I guess. And it's just more of a pissed off record. It was more, then death metal and black metal kind of came into the picture in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
And opening up my mind and listening to more of that kind of music. I mean, that's like the 666 special right there, that record. That's a super heavy record. Demonic really stands out on its own. It's the first record where Chuck always kind of had that, that grunt. Yeah. So I was like, how you go? I go, okay, sing like that all the time.
That's awesome. Well,
yeah, it was. I mean, the first time he did that was on a song that I wrote called "Dog-Faced Gods," and I was like, and it's exactly what I just said. I just said, how you grunt, you got to sing the whole thing like that.
You were doing it before Disturbed did.
Oh, okay. Cool. Right on.
Yeah, and they say metal was like dead in the 90s, but like with Demonic and Low coming out, and then you had Vulgar Display of Power and Far Beyond Driven. I don't really get where that whole idea comes from. I guess it was dead in the hair metal world, but not in just
well, yeah, I mean it was. Yeah, I mean it wasn't dead everywhere. I mean it kind of weeded out the weak, because there was a lot of bands. There was still a lot of lingering Judas Priest copy bands. I don't know who they are, but there was something about metal that was just kind of getting cliche in a way, I guess. But at the same time, it just, the bands that were heavy just got heavier. And, yeah.
Yeah. And finally, the final question I want to ask you is, it's obviously Titans of Creation coming out April 3rd. Is there just anything else with Testament that you would like to promote? Like, in terms of, obviously, when all this shit clears up, we'll probably be seeing you on the road quite a bit, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we kind of had everything all planned out. But, it's a good idea for everybody to just lay low right now and let this, epidemic, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, pass. Everybody stay safe and just, let this thing pass.
Yeah, we'll get through it.
We'll get through it, definitely. But everybody just is got to be on the same page and just, stay home. And I mean, it sucks, but it's better than, it could be a lot worse if people ignored it,
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll definitely get back out there as soon as everything clears up.
Yeah. I think taking a hiatus from concerts for everywhere, as soon as all this clears up, every show is going to be sold out. I just know it.
Oh, through all the trouble and, you know, everything that's happening right now, definitely what you said, you know, people are just going to be more hungry, just like, yes, I want to go to a concert.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we got a new record out, and, you know, people will get to know it, and that's a good thing, you know.
Definitely.
At least the record's coming out on time, and people can trip out on it, and we'll be out there as soon as we can.
Yep. And we'll eventually return to serenity. I had to say that at one point in this interview. But Eric, thank you so much. Everybody, Eric of Testament, Titans of Creation, coming out April 3rd on Nuclear Blast. Pick it up then when supplies last forever. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.